Hello and welcome to the first Cynic Weekly of 2026. It is Thursday the 8th of January and we're excited. It's a new year, same old Celtic, but we're certainly going to talk through all of the sort of things that have went on since we last recorded, obviously in December. I'm your host, Christopher Gallagher. Delighted to say I've got a stupendous panel. Stuart Duggan's here. Hello, Stuart. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thanks. Happy New Year. I was going to try and make a stupendous joke, but I realised that you just did it, so that was... I'll just stop and say, I'm very well. Happy New Year. Looking forward to... what's this? Whatever this is. Whatever this ends up being.
Yeah, look forward to talking about Celtic. We're also delighted to be joined by the wonderful Paul Carlin. Hello, Paul. How are you, sir?
Hello, Gall. Hello, Stuart. May I be the first to wish you both a very happy New Year.
Thank you.
Great to be here. I'm actually quite looking forward to talking about this. It feels like there's been about 10 years worth of Celtic events over the space of like a month, and my brain's bursting and I need to evacuate my brain.
Yes. We've done, if you sign up to the Cynic's Celtic podcast subscription service, over the festive period we had reactions to all the games. We had a couple of news shows as well. Stuart, you were on reactions. Paul, you were on reactions. So we've had some reaction to, obviously, games as they came. The news that Wilfried Nancy had been relieved of his duties on Monday, with Martin O'Neill returning, which obviously came a few days after. We've not got either of your kind of comments on it, Paul. We had the reaction to the Rangers game at the weekend, and in that podcast, essentially, you highlighted the fact that you thought Wilfried Nancy needed to leave. He's gone. What's your reaction?
I feel bad for the guy first and foremost, just on a personal level, because I am a nice guy. But from a football perspective, he had to go. And I had been saying that for quite a long time. I think it was like after the cup final. Was the cup final the third game, or was that the fourth game?
It was the third game, yeah.
Like, it was just so obvious to me that this was not going to work. And again, you've got a choice there. Wilfried Nancy would have had a choice at that point, which would be to be more flexible in his tactics, which he chose not to do, and poor results kept coming. The Rangers game was, I think the final straw was before the Rangers game, but the second half of that Rangers game was so bad, and maybe one of the worst 45 minutes I've ever had as a Celtic fan. He had to go. I'm pleased he's gone. It's been a terrible mistake, the whole thing. I just wish I could erase the past 37, 38 days, because how are we in this situation is kind of my overriding question here. But ultimately, you know, he's a guy, he moved over here, this whole team, a £5 million mistake. That's basically like 1 in a 10th Balaquishas. So
1 in a 10th, of course.
Yeah, 1 in a 10th, that normal number. So happy he's gone. Honestly, happy he's gone. I know we can get on to Martin O'Neill later. After that game, I honestly would have taken Maurice Johnson or Satan himself as the next manager, because it was just at that stage where I just couldn't see us even scoring goals, never mind winning games.
Great points, Paul. We'll head over to Stuart. Stuart, your reaction to, again, as Paul says, we'll cover Martin O'Neill coming back a little bit separately, but Wilfried Nancy leaving Celtic, your thoughts?
I was really surprised, and just in the sense that, generally speaking, not even this season, but the last couple of seasons, whenever Celtic the Celtic board have had a decision to make, they tend to make the wrong one. And I thought that, given the sort of radio silence after the game on Saturday, Sunday, and then even getting into Monday afternoon before they made the announcement, I thought that they were just going to like hang him out to dry. And we were talking about it a wee bit beforehand. I thought it was going to be a combination of just like paralysis and concerned about the optics of it and not knowing what to do with the window now, and they would just leave it to run for at least another game. So I was relieved, just because the Rangers game was so weird. I felt like I dissociated. It wasn't like watching Celtic. I didn't feel particularly emotional before the game. I didn't feel particularly emotional when we scored and when we were playing well. And even when the sort of goals started kind of flying in, it was just like, Yeah, that's what's happens. That's how it goes now.
We were talking about, sorry to jump in, but we were talking about Jurassic Park earlier, right? Before we started recording. And see that whole idea of you disassociating? I feel like I was behind this big plexiglass at Celtic Park watching the game, being like, I didn't feel like I was there. I felt like I was, to your point, kind of observing it.
Yeah, and I just thought, this is
and then a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Like, I wish it would. Yeah, I just sort of thought, this is it now. This is how it goes. And I'd sort of felt with Nancy, obviously, it goes without saying that he was dealt a very, very bad hand. I think in different circumstances, he probably could have and should have done better than he did. But the way that it was all set up, the combination of how he approached it and how it was just a disaster. And after the Motherwell game, that was the real eye-opener where I thought, they play expansive football now. Is that going to benefit our system, or are we going to be lost? And I can't recall seeing Celtic being, even in games in Europe, just like not being able to touch the ball. It's just crazy. So at that point, you sort of know this isn't going to work. But I just thought that they were going to hang on. And I thought that, again, from a human perspective, it's quite good to just draw a line under it, so before any more damage is done to his career, before it gets more personal, and before the season gets away from us, that nothing is salvageable. And I thought that the real bonus is that Tisdale went, because I know a lot of folk were saying, if you keep Nancy around and you back him, you're potentially going to fill the squad with dross that suits his system that won't suit the next person, when it's not going to work and he's not going to last the season. So I think to have Tisdale fall on his sword and not really have as much control of what can happen here is just a real blessing. And that's, you're talking about erasing the last 37 days. If you could really erase the last, whatever it was, 18 months since he sort of got his claws into the football club, I think that would work out not too badly in terms of where we're at as a team. So
yeah, the interesting thing with that is, obviously, so I just want to read out, so when Wilfried Nancy was relieved of his duties, there was a statement on the Celtic board, and it was very small, and it was very like, he's been relieved of his duties, good luck in your future endeavours, right? Then when it was Martin O'Neill, which came out later that night, I'm just going to read some of the comments. I'm not going to go too much into it, but Brian Wilson, the interim chairman, the way things worked out for Wilfried is an intense disappointment, not least from a purely human perspective. We wish him and his family well. And then starts talking about Martin O'Neill. Michael Nicholson starts talking about Martin O'Neill, and then he says, Wilfried is someone who we will always respect, and while it is unfortunate that things did not work out, we certainly offer him our best and hope that he can once again achieve success in his future roles. Dermot Desmond, when we appointed Wilfried, we thought it would be better, more success, blah, blah, blah. Point is, have they just went, Wilfried Nancy's away, Tisdale's away, read between the lines, it's his fault, it's not our fault, we move on?
Aye, I think that's what they're saying. And I actually is a big part of it, right? You're looking at the kind of chain of blame in this, and of course it goes all the way to Desmond, because anything bad that happens at Celtic is 100% his responsibility as the minority shareholder. Tisdale's appointment was just the most Celtic thing we've ever done, right? Another terrible decision made based on an interaction between Tisdale and Desmond at the fucking golf course or a wedding or something like that. And this is not how serious clubs do business. This is not how you appoint your head of football operations or anything like that. Tisdale, the guy is, a snake oil salesman. How he lasted this long is a surprise. But I think that just shows how stupid people on the board are, or how disconnected or how little they care about what we're doing here. So it starts with Nancy, it goes up to Tisdale, and then at that point it's really the rest of them kind of have to take responsibility. But it looks like Nicholson, Wilson, Mackay and Desmond have just gone, right, they're the sacrificial lambs, let them go. The whole thing is just an absolute clusterfuck. And also, we haven't even talked about the players' role in this. I think the players have a lot to answer for. I think this whole experience has shown me that we've got a number of players that are either not up for the fight or are showing serious signs of unprofessionalism. And we'll maybe come to that later on the podcast, talking about the team and kind of where we're at with the squad. So there's plenty of blame to go around. But to answer your question, yes, I think that's what they're trying to do, is just sweep this under the carpet, get Martin O'Neill in and just move on. And in a way, on some level, I'm okay with that situation. I'm all right with just trying to forget about the past month and a half or a month and a week and just focusing on trying to get wins and trying to enjoy football again, because that idea that you two mentioned about just observing Celtic from a distance, almost through like a pane of glass, that's not enjoyment of football. That's not how I enjoy football. I want to feel emotions other than complete despair. And even at my work, I chat to guys at work all the time, and everybody feels the same. Everyone's just disconnected from it, gets no enjoyment from it. So unfortunately for Nancy, he and Tisdale certainly are kind of the figureheads of that misery. Of course, let's not forget who the real problem is, where the real problem is. But for now, I think we have no choice other to just move on.
Stuart, there's been some kind of trying to rehabilitate Michael Nicholson's sort of character or profile. There's been stuff released on like different platforms on the radio saying he's actually been really integral in getting Nancy sacked, and there's stuff online about everyone's really impressed with his professionalism. All this sort of like, it's like a PR package has just been dropped. But we can't forget that he hired him. Now, people will turn around and say, well, no, Dermot Desmond hired him. He's the CEO. So are we paying someone £835,000 per year to be a middleman? And if so, that doesn't seem particularly right.
No, I mean, the way that he was appointed and his whole tenure, nothing is particularly right about how that's done, and nothing at any level of how the club is done in a particularly modern or efficient way. I kind of sense slightly differently. I understand that Tisdale's somewhat, maybe that's been, if not the straw that broke the camel's back, he's had to carry the can, because it's gross negligence if he's really vouched for this guy that's come in and been a disaster, that you can't, in any sort of level, if you hired someone at your work and then they were such a disaster, you kind of go down with the ship. I sort of think around Nicholson, I feel less a sense of self-preservation as I think I did a couple of weeks ago, in terms of, if you go back to the start of the season, who we were looking to sort of unseat in terms of this protest action and the sort of big change that you want at the club. And I think that Desmond, that would be great, but I think that's an unrealistic target. I've kind of spoken about that. It's going to be incredibly difficult to get the Desmonds separated from Celtic Football Club, and that might just be a pill that you have to swallow in a sort of better the devil you know kind of way. But if you're looking at the other players, it was realistically Brendan Rodgers at the start. Like he wasn't helping matters. He was obviously quite a bump in the road in some capacity with how he was interacting with them. Peter Lawwell has been casting a long evil shadow for a long time, and that's now kind of come to an end. Tisdale was another, and now that they're sort of one by one, they're going, and we have interim manager, interim chairman, interim this, interim that. I think Nicholson is a lame duck, and I think that the chaos of the season will mean that he has to go at the end of the year, and Mackay probably as well, just because you can't have this level of disconnect between the fans and the club for season upon season upon season, certainly not at the size of a club like Celtic. I think with the PR rehab stuff, I honestly think it's just trying to quell some of the flames of how chaotic the club is. And it's people coming out going, don't worry, this guy's still here and he's actually been really good and he's switched on and we are going to come through this. Because I think that the one thing that Martin O'Neill's appointment has given you is a modicum of trust that he knows what he's doing and he has buy-in from the fans. But nobody above Martin O'Neill has any buy-in or any credit in the bank with the fans. And I think some of that PR push is just to be a bit like, oh, who's going to sign the players? Don't worry, Michael Nicholson's still been working hand and fist. Who's going to do this? Oh, don't worry, Michael Nicholson's still here. And I don't think it's necessarily like, we've got the best in class here, so don't worry about it. I honestly think it's just a sticking plaster on this absolute bin fire of a situation just now. And it doesn't count for anything. I don't think it means anything. I don't think anyone's listening to those quotes going, oh, actually, I'm quite impressed by him the last couple of days. So
it's so traitorsy, isn't it? I think Michael Nicholson is the secret traitor. They're all...
Paul, the secret traitors... Oh, you don't know yet because you missed the episode.
I thought you were going to say me, and I'm like, yeah, I could be that.
Sorry,
be that
yeah.
guy.
Well, we'll keep the... Yeah, okay.
Michael Nicholson is the secret traitor because he's kind of, I think who is it that's rehabilitating him? It's Siamese Boy on Twitter, Neil Lennon, and who else wrote that?
Allegedly.
Mark Guidi. These are the guys that are standing up for Michael Nicholson. So look at the company he's keeping, and that tells you all you need to know. I have a feeling he'll be away at the end of this season. I think you're right. I think Nicholson and Mackay, hopefully both of them go at the end of the season. And that means actually we have achieved 3/4 of our wish list by getting rid of the three, Lol and the pair of them.
And now the CEO of Celtic, Satan.
Listen,
the Lord of Darkness. Hello, everybody. How's it going?
I think that would be honestly fine. Honestly.
Probably better
Satan
communicator,
himself.
to be fair.
I just, whenever I think of Michael Nicholson, I try to imagine what the shrug of the shoulders and I don't know, when he was talking to the fan groups a couple of months ago at that weird meeting that feels about 10 years ago now, and him saying he doesn't know. Like that to me is just, his whole demeanour is one of a guy who is just.
But see, that's
what
what
know what he's doing.
Absolutely right. And what I would say is, like, if they were clever, they would get someone who's a bit Terry Venables, a bit Del Boy, a bit like, tell you what you want to hear, a bit smarmy, a bit like if they were clever, they would get a communicator to bedazzle us.
Do you want a guy in a funny hat? Because we just got rid of one of them.
I'm not saying I want this. What I'm saying is if they can get someone to come in and be like, just talk to them, like bedazzle them.
It's cult of personality. Celtic needs personalities because
we've seen that with the manager's position.
We're the biggest show in town. You need to have people with personality and moxie in these important positions. And I mean, Peter Lawwell, a personality vacuum as a person, but he did have drive, at least. God, I can't believe I'm paying him some sort of compliment. Michael Nicholson does not exude anything remotely strong or...
You never hear from him. And when you do hear from him, it's the most safe environment or arena. It's him sitting talking to Jerry McCulloch in a recorded interview. And even when he does stuff where it's like, we can re-record this. Maybe we should re-record this. Nah, that'll be fine. With some of the videos that are put out, it's all... Look, we can certainly come back to that throughout the rest of the season in terms of the board structure. I want to focus on where we are at the moment. Stuart, question. What are your expectations for the rest of the season from today? We've got Dundee United this week. We'll talk about some of the transfer links, but as we sit here now, Martin O'Neill is the manager. Everyone knows how much we all love Martin O'Neill. What's your expectations? You can talk about him as well if you like.
Well, one thing I would love is just one normal day, because it's been a long time since we've had one of those. But maybe it's expect the unexpected. I think that with O'Neill coming back in, I think the team will be more competitive. That's one of my expectations, and that's a very, very, very low bar. But currently, Celtic don't look like they'll win any game against anyone. And that run of fixtures that we have, whether it's Dundee United, Auchinleck, Falkirk, Hearts, under Nancy, and with that current setup, I wouldn't fancy them to win any of them. Whereas I actually do think that he'll be able to get a tune out of them. You're going to start to play limited players, and I completely agree with Paul, and I hope we do talk about it. There's a lot of them that have really not covered themselves in glory, the way they've conducted themselves and some of the performances and some of the attitudes, and some of it does come across as quite unprofessional to me. Albeit being put into a very difficult situation, I don't think there was a lot of pass marks going around. I would expect that you'll see performances picking up, and obviously with the transfer window being what it is, I would expect the squad to get better than it currently is, even if it's just with new bodies and fresh meat, and who knows where they strike it lucky with one or two players that can add a bit of quality. I think that having a manager with the clout of O'Neill, not necessarily in the footballing world, but at Celtic, to say, listen, Dermot, we need X, Y, and Z, and we kind of need it now, and you are going to need to push the boat out, otherwise this isn't going to happen. So I'm hopeful that, whether it's in terms of a number of transfers that come through, or whether it's reference to slightly higher quality, it's pathetic that Sean Maloney and Mark Fotheringham are essentially now de facto coaches and directors of football doing a lot of the transfer business, but I would also back them to have a better eye for a player than Tisdale or Nancy, just on the very little that we saw from them. So I think it will be better. I think it's going to be an extremely horrible competitive run-in, which, you know, you're talking about competing against two teams, I think a very, very limited Rangers side, who, to be fair, have done really well under the new manager in terms of shoring up defensively and finding ways to score goals and win games. They're a real set-piece team now, which is problematic against a lot of teams in the division.
Yeah, and we aren't.
And then you've got Hearts, who have been very consistent, and ultimately over the course of a season, I always think that the best team does win the league, and I don't think that you could make any single case that Celtic deserve to win the league, and I think they have to really earn it over this next sort of few months.
If someone came to you and they said, okay, you have to make a bet on one of the three teams to win the league, who would you bet?
I would still bet on Celtic. I would still bet on Celtic of the three teams, but I think it will be tight, and I think there'll be lots of ebb and flow, because I think all three of the teams could drop points at any minute, and I guess we'll get a better indication of, you know, the trajectory at the weekend. I think the fact that there's noises now around some of the fan groups coming back, there's noise about insane transfers and things like that. I was worried, to kind of come back to your original question and why I was shocked about Nancy. I thought they were just going to run it into the ground this season, but it looks like there's a real concern that, like, we actually can't do this. We might finish third. The impact financially, the impact on Europe next year, etc. I do feel like they're now going to try and go all out to try and give you the best chance of competing to win the league. And at the current gap with 6 points, that's not unattainable. But I don't think it'll be pretty. What
I would say on that, and I want to bring Paul in, is that I agree with everything you're saying there, but there's almost this idea that Martin O'Neill guarantees success. Obviously, his run before Nancy came in, 7 wins out of 8. You can talk about how the football wasn't particularly pretty and how it was a bit, you know, hit him, scare him at points, but essentially he got the wins over the line. But there's something about how people are talking now that worries me. That's the expectations. Martin O'Neill didn't have any Martin O'Neill, Mark Fotheringham, Sean Maloney, Steve McManus didn't have any expectations when they took over from Brendan Rodgers. Expectations are sky high now, though.
Yeah, I think Celtic are still favourites to win the league, which is crazy.
I don't know how you can say that.
I don't. I will say that I think Celtic will win the league, because I can't say the words that it would be one of the other two teams. Just physically can't say it. But
it feels like a crapshoot. It feels like you put the 3 dice out, or the 2 dice out, and you know you get snake eye, Celtic win, but you might not.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think the expectation on Martin O'Neill, though, I have a funny feeling. I think O'Neill and Maloney might work differently this time, because previously it was very much game to game. It was understood that it was a temporary fix.
Yeah.
They've now got a very specific goal, which will be, I think, to win the league and to win the Scottish Cup, and maybe get into the next round in Europe. I mean, Europe, for me, I don't think it has as much importance this season, just because I really would prefer we put our focus on the league. But
you have to play those games, and but like, you have to play those games, and I feel like this squad are really precarious in terms of, you know, their enthusiasm, or their, you know, where they are in terms of how they approach matches and stuff. And it feels like any knock the wrong way could drop them into a spiral.
That's true.
And I think that's because of how uneven this season's been and all the ups and the downs. And so my concern with Europe is that we have to play these games, and if you go away Bologna and you get a cuffing, you've got Hearts on the Sunday after. So Europe, we have to focus on it, Paul, I think.
Fair enough. I don't care about it, but it's okay. That's fine. We can all have different expectations. What I do think is, though, there is a huge opportunity here for the players to actually prove that they've got the guts to play for this club. And I'm talking about the captain in particular, who has really disappointed me over the past month. I don't know. When O'Neill was announced, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, because I don't think at the last, when we get beat off of Rangers, I was like, nobody can fix this. You could bring in Pep Guardiola and it wouldn't fix it. But now, after the dust has settled and I've had a bit of time to think about it, I actually think getting Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney and Fozzie back in is probably actually, yeah, that was the right decision. And I think they'll approach it differently. I think we'll maybe see... They've got 5 months to work on a tactic. They've got 5 months to work on fitness. They've got 5 months to
5 days. Because we drop points against Dundee United and you're in trouble. And not to be a...
Yeah, no, I'm thinking more about the question of like, what are your expectations for the season. It's not... I mean, we're only 6 points behind, right? And if we win that game, we're 3 points behind. So it's not like it's not like the COVID season. We're not like miles behind the league leaders. So I'm going to share a little bit of Stuart's optimism just because I think it's a more healthy choice. And maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll be surprised by the manager as well.
I'm not like hugely optimistic about that. I just think that there are things potentially turning from an extremely hopeless position to like maybe some like things to claw at, which was not a bad position a week ago. I think that O'Neill probably comes with a bit of a fear factor for the other two teams, where I think their fans will be like, he just finds a way to win trophies and an incredible motivator. And I think something that we don't have at the moment is just any hint of momentum. And I think that you can generate momentum with results. I think that this next run of 3 games is a really, really good place to pick yourself up. It's a good place to strengthen the team and also to bed players in if you can get them in quickly, if they're not fanning about with their business. I also think that the nature of these long-term injury returns, it's almost like you're getting a sort of second transfer window where you're getting this new wave of players coming back to you, players that you know are of a quality that can really help you in that last push, whether that's from picking up other injuries in the interim period or from just, needing a fresh impetus, like, having a player like Jota, albeit not at full potential, coming back, I think would give everyone a lift in the kind of March, April when you're kind of getting into the real crunch of it. So I also think that it will be different from the interim period because I think that there's a lot more accountability now with our manager who's there to the end of the season and who I think he was there to sort of wrap the players in cotton wool a wee bit in his last run, and I just don't really see that being the case. And I think that there were a couple of little indicators. I really liked that when he was asked how the training was, he went, it was okay, but it wasn't any better than that. And he wasn't joking, like, because he's got, obviously, like, he was full of jokes and there was a lot of levity in that presser. He wasn't messing about with that. That was like a message for the players, like, yeah, that's fine.
I think he said it was fine.
Yeah,
he said it
no more than that.
It was fine.
Yeah, and I think that suggests that there is going to be a sort of standards and perhaps that haven't been withheld, and I think that goes a little bit to some of the issues that I think we've had with the players. Where there's a lot of players that, irrespective of what they've been asked to do tactically in the last couple of weeks, I don't think they've applied themselves correctly, and I think some of them have. It's not quite sabotage, but just haven't wanted to be a part of it, haven't been interested.
Well, one of the issues, and this is, we're going to come to another subject, one of the issues I had with Wilfried Nancy, because I tried to buy him from the start, because I just wanted to see something different, because the season had been so turgid, the point I made, which we kind of covered on the Cynic.co, if you sign up, you get 35 podcasts per month, daily podcasts on a regular basis. But one of the things I would say, the Cynic.co, he kept playing the same players that kept letting him down, right? So, Anthony Ralston, Kasper Schmeichel, 2 prime suspects from the Derby defeat. He kept playing them, and people will say, well, what alternative did he have? You could have played Donovan.
You could play Donovan, you could play Sinisalo. You could have played bloody Tierney at right centre-back because it would have been an improvement. I mean, you could have played probably Sinisalo at right centre-back and it would have been an improvement. And that ultimately, I think, was his downfall because there was no flexibility in what he was doing, and he kept picking the same players that continually let us down, let him down, let the team down. So, but Martin O'Neill's got a job to do, because what's he going to do? Is he going to pick Anthony Ralston on Saturday against Dundee United?
There are rumours that Dundee want to bring Donovan on loan for the rest of the season. I guess this is just we're in a period where there's going to be lots of rumours about transfers. Because they want him doesn't mean they're going to get him.
Counterpoint: they take Anthony Ralston on loan. How about that? How about that? Yeah, permanent.
On the Cynic.co, I've been, and on Cynic on Patreon, I've been jokingly having the catchphrase, these players will get you sacked. But these players will get you sacked. And I don't just mean Wilfried Nancy. I mean, they could cost Martin O'Neill a lot of points. Martin O'Neill's not going to get sacked. But the fact of the matter is, Paul, who let you down? You've mentioned the captain.
Yeah, I'm really, really disappointed with Callum McGregor's lack of commitment. And it's not that I don't think he's played especially badly. I'd say of all the players over the past few months, his performances have been not the worst. Luke McCowan, I've got a real problem with right now. You know when like a kid has been bad, right, and they get caught being bad, and then they start doing that crying thing where they're like, honestly, that's what I think of when I think of Luke McCowan now.
By the way, Luke McCowan got more starts under Nancy than he's got under Rodgers or on the first time round. So.
Yeah, but like that interview last week, I know it's old news now, but you know, like what can you do? Yeah, what can you do? What can you do? I thought that was so unprofessional, and I know he's speaking from the heart,
but you're not supposed to be a Celtic fan in that point. People always say, Celtic fan, you're supposed to be a professional footballer. I felt he gave too much away. I felt like he was trying to signal the Celtic fans and by the way, there'll be a certain element of our support who like that, which is absolutely fine. You know,
no, isn't
no, like people like when footballers are honest and open. The problem is, it felt to me like he was signalling the support to be like, it's no us, we're not doing it, it's the manager's fault. What can you do, sort of thing. And the issue I have with that is it felt quite unprofessional. And would he do that under Martin O'Neill?
Absolutely not.
No chance.
Would he do it under Ange Postecoglou?
No, absolutely
Would he do
not.
it under Brendan Rodgers?
He wouldn't have done it under Brendan Rodgers either. But that's a problem. I mean, it's a wider problem. Sorry, Stu, I think I just trampled all over whatever you were going to say.
Not really. I was just that I don't think Luke McCowan should ever be in the position where, having played as poorly as he did in that game, that he's the one that goes out and essentially puts the manager under the bus. I think it's really telling that Callum McGregor's taking this stance of like, I don't have anything good to say, so I'm not going to say anything at all. And
that's not
that's
not
captain,
acceptable
for a captain.
I'm not condoning it. I'm very much saying that, and I think there are other players who I think that Nancy, for all that he did keep playing, you know, Ralston, Schmeichel, players that were letting him down, I think he did also quite quickly identify players that were not at all capable. Like Scales was absolutely killing us in that, and then he came out of the team pretty quickly. And then also, as it rumbled on, Rio Hatate came out of the team pretty quickly as well. Another player who I know everyone's a body language expert with Rio Hatate, but just didn't look like he cared, didn't want to try, didn't want to do any of the kind of basic stuff. A lot of huffing from Engels, a lot of huffing from McGregor, just players looking a bit lost. And, you know, obviously there's a lot of conversation around Schmeichel. That's like supposed to be one of your big leaders, and it didn't feel like he was trying to galvanise everyone, bring them together. It was a lot of finger pointing and a lot of, there's no hands up. See, when he plays that dreadful ball out to Engels against Motherwell, Engels doesn't really want it, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's all very quick to play the blame game, and there's no real leadership being shown. And when you're not getting it from the side and the guy's clearly drowning in the dugout, it's just not really what you want. And we've talked a lot over the last couple of years about how there's a bit of a leadership vacuum at Celtic. And without the likes of Alistair Johnson, without the likes of Cameron Carter-Vickers maybe holding people accountable, McGregor just sort of sank without a trace a wee bit, and that was disappointing.
And here's the thing, this is almost got nothing to do with Wilfried Nancy. This is about just being in a different situation and not dealing with it professionally, I think.
It's emotional intelligence, and it's
professional pride.
Great point. I think McGregor is sweetness and light and singing and dancing and big smiles when things are going well, but the slightest hint of adversity he hides, and I'm talking about in matches as well. He's 33 now. I know there's questions about should he, follow Brendan Rodgers and go out to Saudi Arabia. On a personal level, I would like to see the back of him, but I think it would be an absolutely insane decision to sell him at this point in the season. And particularly because there's no one else that can step up. Who becomes the captain when he goes?
Well, not only that, but let me start talking about kind of transfer links. Kyogo.
Who?
We sold Kieran Tierney and we needed to replace left back position, so we waited for Kieran Tierney to come back, which he did. Same with Jota on the wing. There's history from Celtic overall. Charlie Nicholas, Frank McAvenny, Stuart Dugan. There's been two conflicting kind of reports. One report, I've got some quotes from Robert Grieve. I got a call this morning from a source, and the way it was put to me was that Celtic are exploring the possibility of bringing Kyogo back. Martin O'Neill has gone into the club, taking over from Nancy, and his number one priority is a striker. Kyogo is a name that's been discussed behind closed doors, certainly in the last 24 to 48 hours. As yet, a deal hasn't been done with Birmingham, but as soon as things stand, I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that gets done soon. They're talking about him playing in the Dundee United game. Since we've started recording, or just before we started recording, I think it was Stephen McGowan has come out and basically said it's going to be difficult to try and convince Kyogo. We're trying to convince a guy who's not scored a goal in the calendar year, one goal in the calendar year, to come back. What's your take on the Kyogo situation? What does it say for how the club's been run?
Just that Celtic are an extremely embarrassing football club, and it's the bowling club mentality again, and I hate the lack of planning, the lack of ambition, the lack of just innovation of any kind. It's just like, well, should go and get the guy that did all right before. And I completely understand that right now Celtic need to stop the bleeding. We need to start scoring goals, and it's pretty good business to bring someone in that you think is going to fit in straight away and that we know is as much of a sure thing at Celtic as possible. So I understand that, and the business of it is probably pretty good as well, because you can bring him in on a loan. Realistically, you could probably, if it goes well, pick him up in the summer at a cut price deal. You've made profit on him in 12 months ago, and now he's back and everything's rosy again. It's a player that's extremely out of form. He scored one goal in the 12 months since he's been away. That was an EFL Cup game for Birmingham. I've watched him once or twice for Birmingham. He's been really poor. He's been kept out the side by Lyndon Dykes and players of that ilk. Yeah. I think I understand from just reading the Stephen McGowan article about how we talked about it, maybe it's a little bit of mischief making from an agent, like, oh, it's actually not going to be that easy, and now that they've gone public, can they maybe get a bit more money out of Celtic? Can the contract be a wee bit sweeter? But
maybe he wants a 2-year deal. Maybe he doesn't want to come on loan. Maybe he wants.
I also suspect that it's a little bit of acknowledging that the whole thing's been a failure over the last 12 months is probably not a great look for any World Cup aspirations he had. Obviously, he's very, very much out the thinking in that regard. But I just hate that, like you said, you wait a few years to try. You don't replace Kieran Tierney. Kieran Tierney replaces Kieran Tierney. Jota replaces Jota, and now Kyogo's replacing Kyogo. It's a bigger statement about how we operate and how things have to change, because it's just not sustainable. But also, I understand the logic in it, that if Kyogo starts on Saturday and scores 2 goals,
people will turn around and say,
baby.
well, what's your problem? And the thing is, Paul, that eventually we'll run out of players that we can bring back, if nothing else.
Well, listen, we still haven't replaced Vasilis Barkas, and I can exclusively reveal that we are currently in talks with Vasilis Barkas.
Is that right?
To bring him home, yeah.
I don't know if you've been watching Kasper Schmeichel the last couple of weeks, but I would say that we probably have.
I hate this on so many levels, in that it just shows that there is no plan at Celtic. We have no plan when it comes to transfers. You make a great point quite regularly, Gall, about, on the 1st of September, the book closes, and then on the 1st of January, the book opens, and we're like, right, transfers. How do we do that again? Things move at such a glacial pace at Celtic as well. So it just shows that there is not a short list of players for every position like a normal serious football club would have. Scouting doesn't happen year round like happens at a normal football club. So Kyogo coming back, look, he'd be better than Johnny Kenny, but it wouldn't be the same. Tierney's been a disappointment since he came back. Jota, unfortunately, is injured, although he looked like he was probably going to come on to a decent game. I think Kyogo's been out of action for a year. He was on the downturn when he was at Celtic in his final season, even though he did manage to score
Would you take
20
him?
goals. Aye.
Yeah.
Just for the rest of the season, I would, aye.
I mean, everything that you all say in terms of, bad planning, bad strategy, all that stuff, would I take him? Aye. Would he probably score goals? Aye. I mean, I've not seen a lot of him since he left, to be fair.
We're just putting plasters on all the holes in the boat just to get to the end of the season, it feels like. And if Kyogo could be one of those plasters and he can make some sort of contribution, which would be more than either of the two strikers that are in the squad right now have done, in fact, 3 if you include Kelechi and Acho, then it would be okay.
I mean, Stuart, you made the point that Kyogo Furuhashi and this Martin O'Neill side were essentially trying to get back to front as quickly as possible and just bombard the box. Actually, it might just work, and we just need things to work at the moment.
I don't doubt that it probably would work. Like, I am not opposed to it happening, but I'm just so frustrated and embarrassed that that's it. To use a phrase, it's the 8th of January. Why, irrespective of who the manager is, Celtic have needed a striker since 12 months ago when they let Kyogo leave. There is no profile of striker that would not have suited Wilfried Nancy and Martin O'Neill and Sam Allardyce and anyone who became the Celtic manager on this day of this year. So why is there nobody lined up ready to go? We keep talking about how they want to bring in 2 strikers. Why is Kyogo even a consideration by the 8th of January? Why don't we have anyone in? That's the bigger question. And the fact that it's even come up in the last 24, 40 hours just shows, like you say, what a mess we're in.
It's emotional blackmail, because what they're doing is they're bringing out these Celtic legends and guys like Martin O'Neill and recent Celtic kind of big characters were like, do you want them back? And people eat it up. And I understand why people eat it up. If it leads us to winning the league, people will go, what a great piece of business by the club. But this short-termism, Paul, is just going to lead to a brick wall at some point, and it could be this season.
I think it has in many ways. Like, hopefully the fan base, and by fan base I mean the wide fan base, not just people that are really dialed into it, can see that just how poorly this club is run and how much we're suffering from a lack of a proper structure in place. No other club operates like this. Maybe Livingston, right? I feel like Livingston operates like this. Like they're just maybe talking about bringing, what's the guy? Scott Arfield going to Livy, right, from Falkirk. That to me is on the same level as what Celtic do in the transfer market.
Well, I just want to jump in. Talking of Rolodexes, which is essentially what we have. We've packed all of the information in a Rolodex and we just flick through it. Rumours circulating today about Roberto Martinez. Obviously, he was Sean Maloney's manager. Sean Maloney was his assistant, played for him at Wigan. The odds of him being Celtic manager have reduced from 20-1 to 2-1. Apparently maybe there was a meeting today. Again, Stuart, it just seems like, who do you know? Who do you know?
I don't so much buy into that, because the notion that, given all the fires that we're talking about at Celtic, that someone is taking a preliminary meeting with a man who's got a World Cup to prepare for is just a bit of a nonsense, to be honest. I think that it's more likely that Sean Maloney was maybe seeking some counsel on everything.
Maybe Martinez's wife is from Motherwell. Maybe they were over for the New Year's. All that stuff.
There's a million different reasons, and I understand that the bookies can slash their odds all they want. It doesn't actually mean anything, especially so far out. I suspect that maybe it was just a social thing. If this has happened, maybe he's seeking counsel. Maybe he's looking for an opinion on players, because Sean Maloney has essentially been promoted to head coach, director of football, head chief scout, all.
Whatever you think.
You know,
Yeah.
Dermot Desmond is the most powerful man at Celtic, and Sean Maloney is currently the second, which is an insane situation. We were talking about this the other day as well, that I think that maybe one positive that could come out from all this is that it's almost like an insane dry run of Maloney in a director of football role.
It feels like that's what it's headed, doesn't it?
Possibly, and if it's something that you do need someone that has continuity, that can, have an overview of the type and profile player that they want. And obviously it wouldn't have ever been in this set of circumstances, but some of the business that we do in the next couple of weeks could be quite informative of how good an eye for a player he has and how possible that is. And obviously he's seen enough of Kyogo, so he's probably gone, well, he's quite good to get him in.
Well, the other, obviously, it was mentioned that Martin O'Neill is, he's a clever man, but he's also, it's obvious for everyone to see that Celtic need a striker. Chris Sutton?
Too old.
Honestly, I don't know if he is too old.
It's good. It's a good bit. Chris Sutton has put the name of Callum Wilson forward. Here's some quotes from Chris Sutton. There's talk of Callum Wilson and his contract ending at West Ham. I know he's been injury prone before, but Celtic have to gamble. It's short term now and needs must. We need to back Martin O'Neill in January and give themselves the best possible chance of winning the Premiership. This is all Celtic can do now. Celtic are 6 points behind Hearts and Rangers, have caught up with them. Nobody can tell me there hasn't been complacency. You only need to look at what's happened. Callum Wilson has, I think he scored 3 goals this season. He's got more minutes than I thought. But he is very injury prone, and he has knees of glass. I think he's had both knees replaced. However, I can't believe I'm saying this. Would he do a job for 4 months, 5 months? Like these are the situations where if the club aren't going to go and buy a 22-year-old shit hot striker from Denmark or Norway or whatever, because they're like, we want to hold that money off and give it to the next guy in the summer. Is Callum Wilson and Kyogo Furuhashi your number 1 and number 2? Stuart made a funny face. Go, Stuart.
It's just a horrible thought. But
that's what we could be.
So Callum Wilson remains an excellent footballer. Like, you're talking about how he's scored 3 goals this season. He's had more minutes than you'd think. He's playing in one of the worst football teams in the world right now. Like, West Ham are unbelievably poor. He's on a pay-to-play deal as well, which I think would greatly appeal to the Celtic board.
I think someone said he's on 10 grand a week and bonuses after that.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Yeah, if he plays, if he
baseline.
scores, that sort of thing. I think that in most circumstances, that would be an excellent January pickup, because in a tight title race, Callum Wilson is the sort of player that could come on and do it. Do you know who it's reminiscent of? I don't like comparing it, but it's like when Defoe went up to Rangers. That's a guy in the absolute last chance saloon of his career, like the total twilight, and scored quite a lot of goals for them, and was ultimately,
He wasn't as physically.
No, of course not. But all I mean was that it was like a bit of a punt. I think that essentially, if we didn't have Kelechi Iheanacho and Callum Wilson was like here's a free signing, he's pretty injury prone, you don't know how much you're going to actually get out of him, then I'd say absolutely. But the fact that the 3 strikers that you would have would potentially be a very injury prone Kyogo, who hasn't scored goals, an extremely injury prone Callum Wilson, and a currently injured Kelechi Iheanacho, that's not really solving the problem. I think that you have to go and sign, even if it's on loan, a functioning
human
footballer, a meat person that can fit a strip of football, and then you can have your additional, whether it's the nostalgia of Kyogo or this is a wild card of Callum Wilson. If you can get Callum Wilson to play 20 or 30 minutes a week, and he could come on and be the difference maker if you're not paying much money for him, that's not a bad deal, but that's no way to try and go and win the league. And when Sutton says Celtic have to gamble, they don't. They don't have to do that.
Yeah.
They should be in a position where they can go and pick up a striker. I think that the main issue they have is that they don't want to go and spend an enormous amount of money, because they're going to have to do a complete rebuild in the summer with a new manager. So it's going to be lots of loans, lots of little plug-in of gaps, and in that regard, Wilson probably fits, but it's not sustainable.
You can't have, what I would say on that is you can't have Callum. I would be terrified if Celtic Callum Wilson was your number 9. And that's a real possibility, Paul.
Aye, if Callum Wilson and Kyogo are the 2 forwards that we sign in this window on loan or in short-term deal, I'll be absolutely fucking raging. I don't mind if it's them and one more, as Stuart says, what did you say, like, meat person? Like, an actual functioning striker. Because whoever the manager is, you're still going to need a fucking striker. Because we don't have any. Like, so hang on. Johnny Kenny, well, great news is Johnny Kenny's on a contract till 2029, right? So he's locked in. Shin, poor soul. He's a poor wee guy.
Surely he'll go somewhere on.
Aye,
He has to leave. The guy just...
Yeah, I forgot about it already.
And
then you've got Ian Acho, who's on another short-term contract. So you don't have options.
It's a 2-year deal, mate.
No,
it was a 1-year deal with an option.
Option, of course.
Which you wouldn't select it because how much has he been injured already?
Can I say one thing? I quite like him.
I quite like him too.
Like it's quite odd that I think.
Is this because of that Christmas video? Because that was pretty good, to be fair. When he was he singing Feliz Navidad? I can't remember. It was good though.
Yeah, that as well.
Do you know what I like about him? He's applied himself in a situation where the big knock against him was that he was unprofessional and he wasn't going to try. I think he has been mismanaged. I was going to say unfortunate with injuries, but he's been mismanaged for the amount of football that he had and what he was being asked of him because our business was so bad that we didn't have anyone else to play. And also that was at a time when you could have been playing Osmond, but Rodgers had bombed him out, so makes you think.
I forgot about him. Callum Osmond, but he's out for a while, right?
Yeah, he's out.
He looked bloody good, by the way.
Do you know what piqued my interest the other day? Bringing back McArdle from, was it Thistle he was at?
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's a Maloney McManus thing.
He hasn't been off the bench in the last 7 games, 4 or 5 games, I think. I think they're bringing him back to put him out on loan again because he's not got hardly any minutes for Partick Thistle.
And also his contract's up reasonably soon, isn't it? So it's sort of... But he's training with the first team squad.
Maybe they brought him back to like, well, we just need a bit of fresh impetus or whatever. But I suspect if he can't get in... That Thistle team are good. Kyle Ewers playing... No, Kyle Ewers at Ayr United, isn't he? But yeah, so I just... we were linked with Nico Segur, who he's at Hajduk Split. It appeared that he was on a Nancy list. Now, let me just make that...
That sounds so shite.
Yeah.
Come on.
You don't want to be on the Nancy list.
There's a kind of narrative that we created a list because Wilfried Nancy spoke to Michael Nicholson and they had this list of people. And then there's another list. They've ripped it up and there's a new list. There's one list.
I'd set fire to that list.
And
Nico Segur is someone... He is a defensive midfielder who can play right back. But if you look into it, if you bury a little bit into it, his agent is the same agency that has Matt O'Reilly, has Josip Jaranovic, that has Laila Bada, and it's kind of like this isn't a list. They've went to an agent.
Yeah. Can I make a point on this? So this is a stick used to beat Celtic with repeatedly, and fairly so. That it's like, it's just agent recommendations. Sometimes I would be curious. I mean, that is a very odd list of players for this one specific agent to have. If that one specific agent had Cal McGregor and also the bloke it had, I'd wonder whether or not when people say that, it's like the agency looks after them. And at agencies, you have lots and lots of football agents.
Yeah.
So it's not that mental, but obviously it's not how you want your club to be conducting themselves.
That's the thing. If you have a fully functioning recruitment department that's working, and then it comes to January and you don't have a lot of time and you go, let's go to an agent who we've used in the past who's that's very different from going to an agent saying, we need a left back, a right back and a centre back, who have you got?
Yeah, and...
So I get your point.
I'm not really the person to ask about this. Will would obviously be a better place to answer these sorts of questions. And I'd actually quite like you to put that to him because I would be curious to know what that actually means, agent recommendations. Is it one specific agent or is it... Because they quoted that, whatever it is, a blah, blah, blah. That's the agency. But like, was Dudu Dahan not
what a
Abada's agent?
You take one of his recommendations
and I know that agents move places and stuff like that. But is it just that he's under that umbrella? And
Well, do you know what? Like, it's a very good point. We'll ask Will. We'll ask our good friend Will.
Because also for all the agent recommendations, his shortlist of clients is really good. So
Like
I think that's a pretty
two
good.
players in there that I really liked, and Leila Bada could occasionally play really well for Celtic. I think I would like this one to go ahead. I was looking into this guy a bit. I like the fact that he's an international. And I was thinking, why doesn't he play for Croatia? Why did he choose Canada? Well, he was born in Canada, right? So I think for a lot of people, your country of birth would be who you want to play for. I'm not into the idea that he's a defensive midfielder and a right back. Yeah, not for me. But
he's played mainly right back for the club.
Hajduk Split.
Yeah.
So Hajduk Split were winning. They should have won the Croatian First Division, I think, last season. But Dinamo Zagreb ended up taking it because they shot themselves at the end of the season. But he's in a competitive league at least, and yeah,
it seems to have been put on ice though. So I mean, again, maybe Martin O'Neill's came in and he's went, here are my priorities. I want a striker. I want a left winger. I want, and maybe they've went, well, we've got this guy, and they've went, we'll maybe towards the end of the window put it on ice. So it feels like this has been put on ice, and
I think the one thing that we can agree on is that it's been put on ice.
yeah,
put on ice. It's a phrase
it's
I quite
pretty
like.
cold. A lot of snow.
I
in Croatia.
mean, obviously we've got. Here's the thing, right? So we're talking about how many players we need, how many players we want to bring in. You get Balikwisha and you've got Tenekte coming back, and that's two players who. Now I know that Tenekte started off really well, but his performance in that cup final against St Mirren I thought was an all-timer. Stuart, these are guys who, I guess, Tenekte might get used, but it doesn't feel like, oh, look at Stuart's face.
He's rubbish. He does, like
Stuart's face there. I've never seen a sneer that.
What I do think
Cyril
is,
sneer over here?
I think that Balikwisha will go out on loan because it was really evident that O'Neill didn't fancy him at all. Like, by name, he said, it's not for me, maybe the next manager will come and have a look. And so if he's already getting filed in the sort of Luis Palma, get your money back, how can you claw your money back, Lager Bielka, that sort of stuff. And I think that they need to get him playing football somewhere, and it's not going to be at Celtic. I can't really remember, I think Tenekte was still having a lot of the same problems under O'Neill as he was under Rodgers.
No end product with him.
No end product.
No short of kind of explosivity.
What,
but nothing at the end of it.
I think that what might suit well is if we sign a striker, and Callum Wilson, sure. And then Maeda plays on the left, and Tenekte can just be used as like a 20 minutes.
How it
should have been done. And also, if you've got the likes of Jota coming back, then...
Oh, brother, come on.
I know, in months... All I'm talking about is as a long-term solution.
Long-term and the short-term.
Yeah, I don't think Tenekte's really the answer. And, this club just love... wasting £5 million in £5 million increments. Just
instead of buying someone for like 12 million quid, 30 million quid, they just buy 6 people at 4 million quid.
Yep.
And it's a total waste of time.
Well, I think both Balikwisha and Tenekte had pretty bad African Cup of Nations times there.
Balikwisha, I think, was kind of pulled over.
Dr. Congo
coals,
fans were going bananas. I believe they were crazy because he was through the jerseys.
We did have a feature called Celtic Class or Utter Gash, but we'll probably get to that.
No, let's do it.
We don't have enough time.
Why?
Aye, we do.
We don't have enough time. We're running out of time because we need to talk about Dundee United.
Fuck Dundee United.
Paul, look at me.
Uh-huh.
I'm the host.
Stuart, what do you want to do?
I would like to do it, but it's fine.
Good. Well done, Stuart.
Nah.
That submissiveness is what I'm looking for from my panel.
I don't like that. I'm with Paul now.
Aye.
No, look, we'll come back to it.
I'll be Luke McCowan and he'll be Callum McGregor, and we will stage a coup d'etat.
Dundee United on Saturday. Stuart, your thoughts going into that game? Like, what's your expectation level?
Just one normal day. That's what I'd like. I think that I will go into that game with a bit more excitement than I would have any time over the last few weeks. And I do think the way that I looked at it when O'Neill came back going into the Cup semi against Rangers, I thought, well, at least if we lose, Martin O'Neill will do or say something that will make me feel better. And I think I feel a bit like that whatever comes of it, I think the whole reason that he's the biggest sticking plaster of them all that we've talked about, he'll probably make me feel a bit better. I know that he was quite vocal the other day about trying to get fan groups back in. If you can do that, I think that would be a massive thing, because there does have to be some sort of... I think you've reached the breaking point where it's maybe a bit premature to say, the war is over, but I think that it's coming to that point where there's nothing to be gained from the Celtic board digging in and trying to gaslight fans that it's a small minority of fans.
Are you sure?
I don't know. I just think...
One normal day, Stu.
One normal day, that's all. I would like Celtic to win well. That would be good. And I think that if Celtic win well, that's the sort of thing that starts to put the shitters up Hearts and Rangers, because they go, oh, maybe they're going to sort themselves out.
Paul, do you think it's going to be Kasper Schmeichel, Kieran Tierney at left back, Ralston at right back, Scales,
Trusty,
McGregor, Engels, Hatate,
Maeda, Johnny Kenny, and
McCowan?
Yang.
Yang, yeah, of course.
I think O'Neill quite like Yang.
Paul, Stuart, you get something different?
I don't think Ralston will play.
I think with the new guy?
Yeah.
Araujo.
Be good to see him play in his actual position. See if he's any good. I also think that Yang is the form player. Also, if they sell Yang...
Imagine being in a position where we're getting ready to riot if the board sells Yang. Tell you what would make a huge difference this weekend is if the Green Brigade are back in the stadium, because we've seen time and time again how soulless and lifeless and miserable that stadium is without them. And the board could do a very, very smart thing for once and bring the fan groups back. And if they go back, I'll be quite happy to go back to Celtic Park. Like, there was talk about boycotting this weekend. Is that still happening?
No,
I don't know.
It's not.
Right. So, I don't know. If the Green Brigade go back, I'll go back. I think we'll win the game. I do. I think the players will get that bounce because O'Neill, Strachan, and particularly Fozzie, who I just love, by the way, are back. And I think there'll be a bit more self-belief, and I look forward to hopefully being entertained as well. Because we do have the best squad in the country. Let's not forget that. These players didn't turn shite overnight.
Do we?
On paper, I think we do.
Paul, there's only one way to settle this, and it's by playing Celtic Class.
We'll play Celtic Class or Uttergash next week, okay? Look, it's been a joy. Obviously, Celtic playing Dundee United on Saturday. From a Cynic point of view, the Celtic Women's Football Show went up today. You're listening to the Cynic Weekly. Tomorrow, we've got the weekend update where we'll look ahead to the Dundee United game. We'll pick up any news that's broken overnight, and we'll kind of build your weekend up. Saturday, we'll have the reaction to the Dundee United game as well. We usually have, as we say, about 7 or 8 podcasts per week. Check us out at thecynic.co. You can also search for The Cynic on Patreon. Lots of podcasts, lots of content, lots of contributors. I think we've had 13, 14 contributors this week, giving different points of view and perspective. We also have articles as well. So check it out, thecynic.co, The Cynic on Patreon, or send an email, editor@thecynic.co, and we can talk you through it. But Paul, it's been an absolute joy. It's been fun having you on the weekly. Thanks for getting involved.
Always nice to do the weekly. Thanks for having me. Great to see you boys. Looking forward to a bit more positivity in the world of Celtic. Hail fucking hail.
Lovely. Stuart Duggan, a pleasure as always.
The pleasure is all mine.
Very nice. From Stuart Duggan, from Paul Callan, from myself, Chris Gallagher, this has been the Cynic Weekly, and we'll speak to you down the road.